Hey viewers, this is Random Stuff with Alex Hughes, and today I think I'd like to talk about not trying not to get triggered by things I see in public. So I think the reason why I wanted to address this was that the more and more I go on public transportation and just see, I guess, what the general public is like, the sometimes I get triggered by what I see. And so, for example, I would say I started going more on the bus. Started going on the bus by myself about 4 years ago. It was during the summertime, and I basically was having cabin fever, and I felt like I was going crazy because I was stuck inside and I felt kind of trapped. Like I can't really do much, you know. Inside the house, and at that time I'd say summer vacation was more like thing was, it's like I didn't have transportation. I didn't learn how to drive. I didn't take the bus by myself, so it was a little tricky because my family was basically working, so nobody to drive me. So I felt like I was pretty much going just claustrophobic. Just staying in the same house all the time and not really leaving. It's definitely I think it's pretty common, especially during the summer where you have like 3 months or so where you're not doing anything. But I decided to go on the bus, and it was pretty crazy to be by myself. So I guess I got more used to it, I would say. Over time, I used the bus to go to different volunteer activities. I used it to travel. But I've definitely seen a lot of things on the bus where they don't teach you this stuff in school. That not at all, and definitely not. And because of that, you kind of have to learn for yourself how to react to things that you see. So, for example, I've definitely seen my share of homelessness, and it has sometimes it has left me triggered because of what I've seen in terms of people's behavior when they're homeless, whether that be some smells that you encounter, whether that be body odors, whether that be drugs. It can be very overpowering. So for me, it was hard because I didn't want to, like the body odor stuff. I try to deal with it. I don't think I really got too triggered. I definitely noticed it. There's no doubt it's really hard not to notice some of the body odor smells when you get on the bus, or you're near somebody that smells very strong, and it's not perfume. It's not perfume. It's the result of sweat. Usually bacteria that grows produces that kind of odor. Like for example, like food, right? When food gets old and it sits around, you start to smell something you shouldn't smell. I remember I left macaroni and cheese out one Thanksgiving, and we didn't refrigerate it, and it was hard for me to let go, but you could smell it, and it's like it doesn't smell like mac and cheese anymore. It smells very off. That goes with milk too, sour milk, but that I think that's the result of bacteria, um, eating away at things. So I think that's probably what's happening with these people, is that they're not taking showers. They're picking up bacteria all over the place, and because they're not washing it off, it's just accumulating on them. And so I usually try not to react to body odors. It doesn't bother me as much. It does upset my nose. But sometimes there would be moments where I couldn't take it. It was so strong. I had to move. And the smell of marijuana is so strong on that is what upsets me a lot, is going on the bus, going on the Sprinter, and it clouds the entire thing, and that upset me. Emotionally upset me, where I was like, covering my mouth and shaking my head, and when you're upset, you have that kind of expression on your face, like and that's how I felt. And now I'm trying not to get upset because it only does me more harm, and it doesn't really help me think things through. When you're upset, it really makes you do dumb things, and it doesn't allow you to actually process that information. Another thing I would get upset by on the bus is, oh yeah, the people who sit in the front of the bus. where the seniors are supposed to sit. So I used to get upset by that, probably because the sign clearly states that these seats are reserved for people that are disabled or that are seniors. So in general, you see people who are young, who are like my age, 20 or so, who are sitting there. You also see young women sitting there, very young girls sitting there. And I guess that upset me in a way because what I saw it was kind of, it felt like it was disrespectful to the older people who would come on the bus and to have legally the reserved space, and people would take that space even though they're not disabled and they're not elderly, and I felt that was a sense of injustice. But I would still tolerate it. I wouldn't, call somebody out on it or anything like that. Like the smells of, the drugs, I would call people. I would tell the bus driver about it, because I didn't want to tolerate, drug use on the bus. Another thing that upset me on the bus was the people who ate. So clearly there are signs that say that you cannot eat on the bus. However, I've seen people, snack, or I remember seeing a guy eating I remember seeing someone eating a burrito on the bus. It smelled really good. Like I said, I'm not gonna lie, some of the food smells great, but the sign says what it says, and I think for me it's like I grew up following rules so much from school that when I see people break them, you have an expectation of people to follow the rules, but maybe I shouldn't expect that, especially in school where people didn't follow the rules. People cheated on tests, they shared answers with each other. They did break the rules actively. I guess my expectation is when you go out into society and you see adults, as a student growing up, you kind of look up to adults and think that they always follow the rules, like the teachers and the custodians and the noon duties or the security. And you're surrounded by adults who are role models and follow the rules and show you great examples of how you should behave. And when you go out into public and you see adults and you have that same kind of cutout per se, like, oh, this, like, like a gingerbread man, right? The same cutouts. And so you'd imagine, okay, the teachers are gonna be like, or the people in public are gonna be like the teachers. They follow the rules, they're the gold standard. And then what you realize is that's not the case. There's adults who break the rules, who use a lot of profanity, which I've noticed in my experience on going on the bus. There's no filter, whereas with teachers you kind of expect, okay, they're probably not going to curse as much, and there's that expectation there, right? And then you go out in public and there's people using so much bad language, very vulgar language, people who, I guess judging, triggered by profanity is the surprise, and the people who are not all that there, the way they behave and the way they act, and you can tell that they need some help mentally. And I've gotten to some interesting conversations that I probably would never have gotten if it were not on the bus. And it just really, you really have to become aware of your surroundings, not only for safety, but just how you react to the world around you, because there are expectations that you have in your mind about how people should act. And then when you see people not acting in that way, it kind of, at least for me, upsets me, especially when it's either criminal or it's just not, it's not proper etiquette, I would say. And so for me, sometimes I did get upset over the past couple years, and seeing these things happen, whether it be drug use and always being taught to stay away from drugs, and whether that be profanity and being taught as a kid to mind my words, whether that be following the rules, such as not eating on the bus or sitting in the front seats where seniors or disabled people are supposed to sit, whether that be, not cutting in line, which is something that, I was taught, no cuts, no butts, no coconuts. And they teach you that in school. Don't cut in front of other people, but you see it actively. And something I got triggered by was the way that, people giving up their seats, even though, other people can stand, or whether that be, the homelessness, which you don't see in school. When you're in K through 12, you don't see homelessness, and even in college you don't see it. It's just, you expect everybody has a home, has parents, and that's where they're living. Whereas in public, you see the homelessness, people sleeping on the sidewalks, people sleeping in tents, and people, oh my goodness, it's such a it really shocks the mind, and it's hard to react to it because it's one of those things as kids we're not exposed to, and so it's a new experience for us, and it's kind of tricky to process this information when it's so shocking to the mind. That for me, I've gotten used to it, and the sad thing is to just become numb to it. And the problem with that is you just tolerate it, and not everything should be tolerated, because we should have expectations of other people and how they should act, to have a civil society, to be able to work with other people. It's not just to tolerate every single thing under the sun. Some things shouldn't be tolerated. For example, the people, the homelessness, the people sleeping in bushes and defecating in public. That shouldn't be tolerated. It's hard for me because it's like, I want to do something about it, but it's hard to take on everything under the sun, because there is so much to solve in the world, and I think to put everything on my shoulders, I think would probably drive me insane. So, and that's what I wanted to mention today, because something did happen where I did get triggered, and it's been a while since I got upset by something like that. But it's tricky. Trying to balance that out is an interesting thing. And so it's really about being mindful about your emotions and your subconscious mind, and always being on top of that, because you could always revert back to old habits and old thinking patterns that really just kind of gain the same results. So that's what I wanted to mention today about getting triggered in public, on public transportation, and I hope you guys learned something through there, and I hope you guys have a great day. This is Random Stuff with Alex Hughes, signing off.